a lot.
Well, welcome back from your travels.
Welcome. Yes, home back on my couch.
Yep.
Hi there. This is the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast internet, #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. Before we start, though, I want to quickly, just in case people are watching this live, keep everyone in your prayers because of the fires in Southern California, because I'm close to quite a lot of them. Thankfully, I'm safe, just to say that up front. But I've had some friends who lost their properties, so definitely keeping them in our thoughts and prayers. So do you want to put that in front? And then we can proceed.
So much, yeah. I've had lots of people ask me, and I am so far away, but so many people I know have been affected a lot. It's just a lot of disaster and a lot of tragedy and displaced people and homes they've lost. It's really very sad, very sad. Yeah, so we will definitely have them all in our prayers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So today our subject is about how to find someone if you live in a remote area. I've certainly have clients. I don't. Barry and I both live in the middle of big cities.
True. Although, just as a little sidebar for a second too, I find myself attracted a lot of times to people because I'm looking at certain criteria of what I want in a partner, and some of the women I meet online, like not in dating apps, but just in terms of connections through communities, everything else, live in other countries. So I know that feeling about being far away. It's not necessarily remote, but long distance, which may overlap in this conversation, just to preface it with that too.
Oh, long distance relationships. Yeah, that's a whole nother level to all of this for sure. And it certainly could be a challenge if one of both people live in remote areas, because you're going to have to travel not only to see each other, but to find things to do if you live in a remote area.
Yeah. It's an interesting question to ask.
It's a real concern for a number of the people that I coach, because they do. I mean, often for widowed people, what's happened is they moved there because of their spouse's job, or to live near the spouse's family, or because they wanted to retire and have a farm. And so now there they are in this remote area, by themselves without a partner. And how do you meet people? And sometimes they say, it's a small town and I've dated everybody that I'd be interested in, and I've run out of people. I mean, it's a real problem, right?
Yeah, totally. And the thing also, and it probably is more of a concern or a challenge when it's more of a rural type thing. It's further out, because being in urban or suburban environments, you may not find the one you want, but at least there's plenty of choices. And so when you're in a remote place, it's kind of like you have less choice to choose from, unless you cast your net further out into places where there are more people. But that, as you said earlier, is about then requires you to know you're going to have to travel or commute or be away from where you're based to be around people. And yes, just to add what you said, I was talking to a prospective client yesterday about this. They live on a very, I won't say secluded, but a very private space. They live on a few acres of land away from the city. So they're not like, they're not bumping into people in the street sort of thing. And so, yes, the dating apps can be useful in this context because you can meet people with geographic radius you can play with, but it's not always the best way. So we'll talk about it in the show today. And I may not be adding the most to the conversation because I'm not experiencing this much myself, but what people can do, what you can do if you do live in a remote area and you want to meet somebody, how would you go about that?
And it's funny, I was thinking just now when we talked about how we both live in very populated areas. And then I think some people complain there's too many choices. Then when you live remotely, there's not enough choices. There's enough complaining fodder to go around.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, if you live remote, if you live, a drive from a bigger city, or at least a place that's more populated than yours, that contains people that you didn't go to school with, because I think that's part of the problem too when they live remotely. They just know everybody. And it used to be that's how people met and married. They met in school. They met because they grew up in the same geographic area, which had a lot of benefits because you had a lot of the same morals, you had a lot of the same traditions. And so that's one of the hard things too about looking outside your area of, are you going to have enough in common? Are you going to have like a foundation to start from. And the conversations I have with those people a lot is, well, won't it be fun to find out how other people do the same thing so differently and see, not necessarily will you like it or like them. You'll just find out about other things because the client I had earlier today, she's grown up and lived in the same, it's a pretty big city, but she's lived there her whole life and married somebody that she met in that city. And now she is looking outside. I said, you're going to have to listen to this podcast. We're going to be talking about that today. So certainly, and Meetup. So I've suggested Meetup, and there's no meetups. So the other thing I've suggested is if there's not a meetup, because often there really is, you just have to look a little farther and maybe in a different direction. Start one.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an interest, it's amazing the people that'll show up. And I said to them, start it on Zoom. At least you'll connect with people, even if they're really far away. You could at least connect on Zoom. And this is how you're supposed to vet people anyway. When you used to spend time together in school or at work, you'd see how they interact with other people. And are they dependable? Do they show up? And do they participate? If those are high value to you, you'll learn a lot before either of you make the trek of an hour and a half or 6 hours or a plane ride of whatever it would be, so that you get a satisfaction of doing something you like and seeing if people will come and play with you. I think a Zoom meetup could be beneficial in this area.
And in fact, there's a kind of switch in this one, because when you are in the big city around lots of people, it's sometimes you think it's just easy just to meet up with the person. When you are further out, you are remote, it's like you almost have to do phone call, video chat, Zoom type thing ahead of time, because the investment you have to commute to go meet that person geographically away from where you are is an investment. So to have the vetting system by meeting them either audio-wise or video-wise, better with video because you see the whole context, gives you at least a head start, and then you know whether or not you want to put the effort in to go meet the person. Because the thing is, and that's what I say, in a way that's a benefit, or I should say it's a more of a primary shift of priorities when you are remote, because as I said, when you're in the big city, meeting somebody at the coffee shop is like, yeah, just do that sort of thing. That in some ways you can, unfortunately, not vet them properly first. So the thing about modern dating anyway, and this is a sidebar again, but modern dating, we've recommended several times in the podcast about using the tools available to you to have a phone call or a video chat, even inside the dating app first, so you don't give away any personal information, so you can verify this person first was a real person, not a scammer. The second, if there's somebody you want to be with. So being in a remote area, that should be like first choice, is to do some level of communication so you get to know this person in a way that gives you most of the picture you can get without seeing them in person.
Yeah, so important. So if you are going to think about going out of your city to some other city, one of the things you can see if you go to church, there's another church in another city that's the same denomination. Oftentimes they call them sister churches. And, you could reach out and call and talk to like the pastor's secretary or the office manager and say, this is what I'm thinking about doing. This is the kind of message I'm used to, or the kind of people I'm used to, and what kind of activities do they have? Would it be worth my while to come? Do you have room for new people to come? And at least that you're going to like going there to hear the message. If you like, sometimes they have them online, you could watch the sermon. But I have people that have now changed and now go to a church outside their city because they're getting more benefit from it, because there's more people and they're not the same people. Oh, Gigi heard your voice. Here she comes.
I haven't seen her for a while.
That's how I saw her. She was sound asleep, but she said, oh, Barry's on the Zoom. I have to come out and flirt with him.
Oh, Gigi, she's a flirt.
She is.
But I want to underscore that and it is interesting because, like myself, I have a spiritual background and I go to a spiritual center. There aren't as many of those around as, say, I don't know, Methodist churches or other places like that. So it is going to be more far afield. I find another version or similar version to what I already attend. So that's a great thing to have. And one of the things we talked about again in the podcast previous episodes is finding a place you can go where you have common interests with people. And so even going to a church is a great place to go if it's something that aligns with you, because you'll meet somebody who has common beliefs that you do. So, we talk about, if you have common interests, you go hiking or working with horses or working in an animal shelter or whatever you do, do things like that. And if you are living in a remote area, you might want to think about having creative hobbies, things that you love to do that may take you further afield than you normally would have gone. So you meet people in other places, which could be in a bigger environment, bigger city, bigger population area. That could then feed you that even if you don't know anybody, you're going there for yourself. And then the bonus might be you meet somebody nice. So there's another option to play with as well.
Oh, Barry, that is such an important point. You go for you. You go because it's something you want to do that will fill your heart in some way, that gives you energy because you went and participated in something, that you learned something different, or you did something new with your body, or you gave back to the community, because you need to go with that goal, because you'll reach that goal. It can't be because you're going to meet somebody. That's a bonus. That's like the cherry on top of the sundae, because that's when people get discouraged, when they come with what I'm going to say out loud is an unrealistic goal that you think you're going to meet your person just because you go to a new thing. I mean, you
Right.
might. I've had lots of clients meet that way. You just need to go with a much more realistic goal, that it's something you want to do. And find a friend, if you have a friend, especially if you're a woman and you don't want to go alone, especially if you have to drive for an hour or two. And then you know that you'll like the company, you like this person, maybe they'll like this thing too. And then it'll be more energy for going back because you liked the thing. And if you go to a thing, an activity, usually, I tell people give it 3 times, because often, there's a few people that will come always. There's always, certainly in meetups, there's always new people coming and going that they were on vacation, but they normally come, or somebody who just heard about it like you and they're a newbie, and how fun to go. What do you think? And how did you find out about it? And then also when you're there, please ask the other people what other things they do. If they like this thing, then maybe they like something else that you would like too, that you wouldn't have found out unless you asked them. It's so helpful.
Yeah.
Do some networking.
That's a great key. And frankly, it's probably one of the best ideas, because because again, if you're in a remote area, you're committing to go somewhere different, somewhere special, somewhere further away than you normally have. And to make that visit, again, as you said, and I said, for yourself, like you value yourself, then also once you're there, expand your horizons, do things that like put new seeds further out, so to speak. And that's such a key thing too. Because if you've been working a nice, living or working in a remote area, your social skills and your social calendar may be pretty empty. So to build up some things you want to do, and it may not be every night of the week, no, because you've got to drive so far maybe or commute so far to go do things. But at least on a weekend, you're going to go down to, go into the big city sort of thing from where you're remote, to do things that you want to do for yourself. And because you've networked with other people, and like you said, which is a great idea, going to the church like 3 times, because that way you'll get more of a spectrum of people you'll meet over there, and you'll get to meet people, because the first time you go, you never know what you're going to meet. Maybe great, maybe not. But if you go 2 more times, you can compare and contrast and get an idea what you're meeting. But then you do go, making connections, making friends, and discovering what is there for you to do. So you can go back other times, not just to the church, but to other places you can meet people. Recommendations for restaurants, recommendations for social places, recommendations for bars, recommendation for hobbies and things that people do where they are. You can take notes from that and maybe use that to build out your own new social life in that place that you're going to visit more often. It can be worth it.
Because as you mentioned, if you go someplace that's away from where you live, the high probability the people that are there live there and will know lots of the other things to do. There might be college classes or community centers or volunteer opportunities that, because you don't live there, you wouldn't have known about it. You just know about this one thing, and you never know what they'll be able to share with you that they've been participating in for 5 years and it's so much fun, or they had just heard about it, or they know a way that you could now go check through this. Like in my area, I live within hearing distance of a university, and they have this OLLI program, which is everywhere. I didn't know it was everywhere. I thought it was just we were the special, and that you can do this continuing education thing. And they have such a variety of classes. I just met the woman recently that does flash mob classes. It's so funny.
Flash mob classes.
It's yeah. And they go do like at community events and stuff, they do their flash mob. And it's just so much fun. I've watched a bunch of her videos now, and she has some health problems. And it's the thing that keeps her healthy is that she goes and teaches these classes and then goes out and does flash mobs. And it's all people generally over 50 doing flash mobs. It's pretty fun. Who knew? I mean, who knew?
Right. I mean, and that sounds pretty amazing to have that idea. Another thing I want to add to the list as well, because it's something as we're talking, is the investment of time to go somewhere and spend time somewhere else. It may feel like a lot of effort when you got to drive an hour, 2 hours to get there. Because I'm saying maybe make this weekend plans is if you have more flexibility in a schedule, or if you have at least a planned schedule where you know you're working 3-4 days a week, maybe remotely, maybe from home, we're doing, it may be worth investing in going to the city, going to that location for the weekend and spending, having 2 nights in a hotel or an Airbnb for the weekend. So you can actually put your feet up, sort of thing. Actually enjoy being in the space versus, damn, I got to look at my watch, I got to drive home, sort of thing, where you feel like you're panicking all the time. Because again, if you want to meet someone and you're living in a remote area, you want to be relaxed when you do meet them, not stressing out because I got to drive 2 hours to go home, sort of thing. So it may be worth making time to be in that location to, one, as we talked earlier about the social calendar and meeting new people and doing new things, but also the chance to meet somebody special whilst you're there. Makes sense as well. Not saying you have to move there, but the fact you spend some time more than a couple of hours can make it worth your while. And then, the opportunities show up more easily when you do that.
Such a good point. And when I travel, on vacation that's not family oriented, and wherever I stay, I always ask the people that are in charge, like the concierge or the person that owns the Airbnb, what kind of fun things are there to do? Restaurant recommendations, activities, and they know the way to get there safely and get back safely. And they'll know like the inner scoop about the thing. Oh, this is the best day to go and the best time to go. And I have friends that go, and I'll make sure I introduce you to them. I have had the most fun in places that I'd never been before because the inside people gave me the inside scoop.
And that's a genius thing I do too. I love that. And again, these are not rocket science. They're just pretty straightforward, but the benefits can be so far outweighing any sort of investment of effort and energy. So I guess what we're saying in ways is that if you really want to go meet somebody, you want to create like a vacation for the weekend, at least, to go like outside your own box to go there. Because so let me back up and lay out this spectrum, this thread as we've been talking about. It's been building as we've been talking. But the idea being is that you may meet someone online, and especially if you're a woman, you don't necessarily want to have them come visit you where you live right off the bat anyway, because you want to really test and verify this is a real person. So video chat, phone call at least, ideally video, because you get to see the person and make sure it really is the person that you saw in the pictures, in the dating app, whatever it was. And then go meet them somewhere neutral or in the city where they live so that you can be self-maintained. We talked about this before in previous episodes about having your own out, so you're not under any sort of control by them. The second piece is to make the adventure to go to that new place, the city, the more populous area, wherever that is, because ideally, if you live in a remote area, you're not 200 miles from anything. You're actually only maybe 20 miles, 30 miles from that place. So you can go spend time there and maybe investing in having an Airbnb or a place you can use every weekend or once a month when you go there. Maybe you know the people who own the place, that they give you the space and you can work that out. And then that creates for you this hub from which you can operate, again, away from your home. So you're not, what's I'm looking for? You're not prone with your own place. You get to be free to be wherever you are. And that again creates another level of boundary, another place of safety, because we're all about respecting space and have safety for you. So then when you're in the environment, first of all, you might have generate a whole bunch of new friends. And secondly, you start maybe learning some new skills, new habits. Maybe dancing is an idea from the flash mob stuff. You might learn new things you can do that you never thought about before. And just simply because you're going out to a new location to maybe meet a date, you discover you've got a whole new skill set you didn't know you had. So it can be fun.
Really fun. And I am a museum person and an art gallery person. So I'm always asking what the local stuff is. And they're just so fascinated that this person that doesn't live there is interested in that. And so they always tell me like the neighborhood places and then the bigger place. And sometimes they've gotten me a tour like at a college, interesting thing. I mean, it's really been fun when I am so specific about what I like. And I have friends that want to taste the really specific local cuisine. If there's something in a different area that they eat this very specific food, or gosh, I want to taste apple pie and or chili, you know, and every place I go, I'm going to taste that. I mean, that could be a goal too. And it just adds a little levity, and it's not so serious about why you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking while we're there, yes, off you.
We'll have lots more advice. We're going to be off for a commercial for just 30 seconds, and then we'll be right back.
See you in a moment.
Hello, this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry, and today we're talking about how to find someone if you live in a remote area.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things when you mentioned about your phone, that I think it's really good if you have a person, your person, like your family or a really close friend, who you do the follow me. I think it's called different things on different phones, that they know where you are and you've told them where you're going and where you're staying and how long you're going to be there. I just think it's smart, especially as a woman, generally as a woman. Have somebody know where you're going to be and how long you're going to be there. And they can, if you have your phone with you, I've seen how it works. They can see wherever you are and how long you stay there. And I mean, they can just keep an eye on you if something happens or you need help or you just need somebody to talk to. And, you know, it's one of the things about being a widow is it was so lovely having somebody to come home to and somebody who noticed if I didn't come home. Like I told the funny story about Christmas shopping and Tony's like, are you going to come home from the mall? And alone is fine, but it's one of the hard things for widowed people. So if you're going to go on a trip, even a short, brief trip to go do one of these exploring things, I just like knowing that there's somebody who cares and is paying attention, that I'm out and about and I'm being safe and they're just keeping an eye on me. So I think it's a lovely thing to add to your repertoire if you're going to go out exploring.
That's one of the good things about having technology getting better and better, is that we do have these resources with, you know, smartphones and connections, so that you can give, you know, your itinerary to somebody else that you trust, friend, family, who will watch you, not spy on you. So I qualify that. But can watch after you, look up and be careful and be your guardian angel, so to speak. So we sort of have that as well, absolutely. And I know we've been saying a lot of things that are maybe more nerve generating, but I want to say basically is because, you know, we are not fools with the modern dating. We know what dating's like, and there's so many scammers out there and other things too. That as much as we're saying, if you're a woman who lives remotely and you want to go into the city, that's what I said, set up base in that city, like an Airbnb or a hotel, so you don't have to share your personal location with somebody you don't yet know that well. And yes, there are whole stories we talked about in previous episodes about the charlatans that went through a relationship with you, sort of thing, which is a whole other thing. But I'm just saying, from the get-go, having a more self-respecting and a boundary-based environment, so you build from there as well. Because if you are living in a remote area, there might be a sense, especially you don't see anybody locally, where you feel a bit desperate. Like you want to find somebody, you're needing that physical touch, that connection, that intimacy. And by doing that without personal regard, you might start to ignore red flags. You might start to ignore danger signals that won't protect you. So we're not saying this to say it's all dangerous. However, we are saying do it wisely, to set up the right way of doing it, so that when you do go out, you can have fun with it, but also know that you've put things in motion to take care of yourself. Because this is it's part of the journey, you know.
That is so wise. Yeah, the desperate, lonely thing. It's the scent that scammers can pick up. They have a sixth sense for desperate and lonely. And people that want to hurt you, they can tell. They can tell by the way you walk and look and talk and act. It's sad. So if you are feeling that way, then figuring out how to shore that up in you before you go on an adventure, because not necessarily with the adventure fix it. So joining
Right.
things on Zoom where you can start making friends, or finding something closer to your area where you could just do, you're there for a couple hours and you can come back home, an animal shelter, or a speaker at a library, or something where you can just go get involved closer to home before you start venturing out where you're going to spend a whole weekend someplace, because you can't go feeling lonely and desperate. I'm so glad you brought that up, because it is awful. It's an awful way to feel.
Yeah.
I get that. And it's something you need to work on before. It's the part where Barry and I keep talking about. You need to work on yourself first. And the other thing that you were saying about having somebody look out for you, the more you can take care of yourself, in that you even ask for help, but the more you can say, I'm feeling a little lonely about this, or a little lacking about this, and I need to shore it up, the more you'll be available for somebody to give it back to you, because you're now proactive working on that. Where if you just sit around and feel lonely
Right.
and sad and desperate, guaranteed you're going to either attract a scammer or somebody else who's lonely and sad and desperate. And two lonely, sad, desperate people do not make a whole good, healthy relationship. Barry and I have heard that a lot. We teach that a lot.
Yeah, and just to say from more of an elevated view, is that having done over 100 episodes, 200 episodes rather, of this show, there's a lot to talk about with dating. And so dating is not, for us, not just like a quick fix that you just find somebody and you're in bed and that's it, done. It's like, no. Yes, it can be that way, but the ultimate quality of relationship you're seeking, hopefully watching episodes for a while, is about valuing who you are and making yourself a good partner. And we've both been talking a lot lately, and I'm actually focusing all my work now on the self-relationship aspect of relationships, so you really build that self-support systems and become a better partner to attract a better partner. And I know you like saying you're making them the perfect match to attract the perfect match. Same idea is the simplicity of understanding that even when you're remote from somewhere, that you want to find somebody, that you still carry that understanding that you want to make sure that your values, your green flags, your level of self-support is established. So when you meet somebody, and this is the challenge also, in a new area, or you move into, or you go to the city to meet them, they don't sort of latch on to the first one you meet. Now, I know I did that myself when I was younger, so I know the pain of that. Just to speak from personal experience, was definitely when I would go somewhere new, the first attractive woman was like, she's the one, sort of thing, which is not accurate. Rarely so. I mean, maybe once in a blue moon it is, but not usually. So having that ability to not be so reactive to what's happening and so addicted to meeting somebody makes it easier for you to start looking for the right person and being more astute in who you choose to be with. So that's what I want to make sure I reassure and underscore, that this process of meeting somebody from a remote area doesn't mean you lose anything by doing it. In fact, if anything, it raises the bar, so you choose better.
Very good point. Yes. Because once you free up yourself from the lonely, desperate, you start really considering, well, what do I really need and want? And what kind of a person qualifies for me and is worthy for me? Because so often we're overly worried about, do we qualify or are we worthy? And as Barry talked about, he and I use that as such a foundation to get you feeling very confident and very worthy to go out into the dating world. And then to make sure you're thinking, do they qualify for me? I mean, that's really important. And if you don't think that, you need to really start working on the internal stuff. If you're not paying attention to who are they and do they qualify for me? And it's so not in a conceited way, it's in a self-assured way. Because if they've done their work, they're thinking the same thing. I mean, they don't want somebody that's all needy and falling apart. That they want somebody that can be an equal partnership, that as you need each other, you can be supportive, but you're both coming from a very full place. You filled yourself up before you got there. And the lonely desperate is very empty, very sadly empty.
As we covered in previous episodes. And so really what I guess we're saying is your homework, if you do live in a remote area, which is not different from if you are in a busy area, is to work on yourself. It's kind of simple.
That's across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, as we're both saying, is like the relationship you have with somebody else really is only as good as the one you have with yourself.
Oh,
And if you are looking to meet somebody who doesn't live where you are and you're living in a remote area, build up your own stamina, strength, self-support things first before you go out venturing into the city to meet somebody, sort of thing, in air quotes. It's that preparation energy that is not just about get ready to go, but being ready to be ready. So you start working on yourself. And yeah, this positioning of meeting someone when you live in a remote area ultimately isn't that much different to anything else, but it may put things in more of a sharp relief and a perspective so you see things more clearly.
So a big complaint I hear about going and looking away from where you live, even if it's a remote area. I'm this really spontaneous person and I want to just call them up and say, let's go to the movies or let's go for a walk or let's go have dinner. Okay, if that's truly who you are, then you need to find somebody in your area. Because what I've learned from the people who say that to me is, I'm going to say, like Dr. Phil, how's that working for you? Because
Right.
the 3 couples I know that have been in a while, long distance, very committed, happy, but plane rides, long distance, not just you have to drive a couple hours, 6-hour and then more. It's a lot for one of them to really get back and forth to each other. They still can be very spontaneous remotely. They've worked it out. And it's funny because they constantly talk about how they talk about it. When one of them makes that, truly, it can take 11 hours from door to door if there's any delay at all. And they get there and they go, that usually it's the other person, is it still worth it? And every time so far for 3.5 years, they both say yes. And they continue to have that conversation, though, which everybody's really scared to have. Because what if one of them says no? I don't want them to say no. But they might say no. It might not be no cut off. It just might be, it really feels hard. Well, let's talk about the hard. Is there something else? Is there something else we could add? Is there something else we could do? Might sometime become no. And the thing that I've been so impressed with is these 3 couples are continuously brave, because that's what it is, to be brave.
Yeah, absolutely.
To say, can we keep, time, energy, money? It's such a drain in so many ways. And yet they keep going, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. We see each other every day this way, often more than once. We talk, we text, we feel really close. It's just, the physicality that everybody misses. Get that. And they continue to say, it's worth it. I'm so proud of them. So it's not for everybody at all. And I am not saying that. I just want you to say to yourself, would I be open to it at all? And would I eventually, because they will, relocate? And that's the other thing that people say, I might, but I'd be 3 years or 5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you do that? And could the other person do that? And could you have a conversation, not just one and done, but a continued conversation about it? Because that's the next step. If you do go out to do remote things, you might meet somebody that's remote. I mean, I've had clients who met people on vacation in another country. Now, the person didn't live in another country, but they didn't live near them. And so they figured out how to have a relationship, even though they were states apart. So you have to decide your priorities. And there's people who can't move, will never move. They have property or they have grandchildren. So then you need to have the other person say, because I'm willing, it'd be a weather thing for me since I do love the weather here, but I fly to see my family right now. So I would just fly from someplace else to see my family. Probably. I probably wouldn't live in either one. I could live in those states, but probably not. The odds are small, but I would move. I would absolutely move for love. But there's very few people in my age group that would say that. So you just need to find out, are they willing to move? Are you willing to move? And how are you going to do with the drive? And so funny, a guy the other day wrote to me and said, oh, your profile's so cute and I'd really like to date you, but you live an hour away. And I said, okay, I accept your decision. And what's so funny is I drive very near where he lives once a week to go horseback riding. But I'm not going to say that to him because he's already made up his mind. Okay.
No,
and yet I've had men drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to come and see me. Those are the ones I want to go out with, not the one who tells me out loud I live too far away. Okay.
Yeah. No, there's one. It's funny because I had a similar situation. There was one, and I figured out it's only about a half-hour drive away. She said it's too far away, and I was like, and I didn't even bother to explain, because as soon as and it's interesting because also her username in her profile on the dating app had the city in it, so she was very proud of where she lives, and clearly she wants someone who lives in the same city. She's very clear about the locus of interest she has in her life, and the fact that and it's like in rush hour traffic in LA, half an hour is only about 3 miles. This is I'm talking about when there's no traffic, it's about half an hour. But the understanding and kind of like, I just didn't want to bother pushing it, because to be able to do that would be trying to push for a case she was never going to accept. And I know this deviates away from the whole remote location. In fact, I just want to say, if you haven't listened to our episode about long distance relationships, you definitely would recommend doing it, because it'll add value to what this conversation is about. Because a lot of what you're talking about living in a remote area is going to be long distance. So understanding that context as well, I definitely recommend. I don't remember what episode it was now. Recently it was, but definitely go look for it in our archives, because that conversation is very pertaining to what we're talking about here.
Yes, it's interesting because I asked my Monday night Zoom that it'll be 5 years in March that I've been doing it. And
congratulations.
Thank you. It's really an interesting accomplishment when I think about it, that I asked them, I don't know, probably 3 years ago, what their distance was. And unanimously, it was 20 minutes. And I said, it's a little narrow, and you need to stick with what your thing is. If this is your thing, the guy who said I'm an hour's too far, okay, got it. Then you say, don't reach out to people that are farther away. If that's really a thing to you, if you would never move, if you don't want to drive more than 20 minutes, then don't even talk to people. It's a little narrowing, and everybody gets to have their priorities, like the woman who said that you were too far away. Okay. We don't want somebody that doesn't want us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. So when you're exploring outside your remote area, be clear about how far are you willing to drive. Find out if the other person's willing to do the same amount of driving. The thing that cracks me up is, though, and it can happen, we'll meet each other and we'll decide it's worthwhile, which could happen.
Yeah.
Be a little, with this particular thing, be a little more clear about where you really stand. You can change your mind, but be clear. Because I say, I would never say never about snow, but snow would be a little challenge for me to live with, especially if it snowed a lot. Like I have family that live in Edmonton, and it snows 9 months out of the year. I really don't think I could do that. And I don't camp. I wouldn't live in a camper. But barring those two things, I could be flexible to have a conversation. I don't know that I'd do it, but I'd have a conversation about it. So that's what you need to have the conversation with yourself about. Where are your hard stops? And then where do you have some gray area that you'd have to ask lots of questions about?
Absolutely. That key teachings right there. Actually, it came up for me just now. I was just thinking, is if we flip the script the other way around for a second and say from this point of view, that if you're a woman, you're living in a city and you get invited to meet somebody, or somebody reach out to you who lives in a man lives in a remote location, a lot of movies come to mind. Scary movies.
All the Hallmark movies. All the Hallmark movies.
Those as well. So it's like scary movies and Hallmark movies. So the thing about the reason I'm saying this is because we talked about, if you're living in a remote area, meet somebody else, man or woman. But if you are a woman living in the city, as I said earlier about test and verify, check and verify, phone calls, video chats, before you meet the person in person. And if it is where you live in the city and the man lives remotely, do your best to have them come to your part of the world living in the city, not to see where you live. No, not that close, but meet in the center, have them come to town. And also I've been talking about, maybe you recommend they choose to get an Airbnb or a hotel so they can be in the city for a while and get to know, and you can go for walks and meet up during the weekend or the time you spend there. So you basically build, again, a safe and boundary-based connection with somebody, so you don't walk into a narcissist or a predator or some other sort of negative person, a scam or whatever it is. So just to clear, because we did cover mostly from the remote side, what if you're not, but you meet somebody who lives remotely, how you deal with that too. There's a lot to this, obviously. But again, the long distance is a key part of that. and to really set your values and your standards high, because you deserve that.
So many good points, Barry. I like every single one of them. Thank you. Yeah. Having them come to you. And I've had 2 men fly and stay in hotels too. I was very impressed. They came and they, on purpose, my request, they stayed in their hotel and I stayed in my house because it was the first time we were meeting. But I have I live by a university. There's a hotel on their property. So it's practically within walking distance of my house. So it worked out really well. And it's pretty inexpensive. It's a lovely little Marriott. So figure that out, where they could come and stay if somebody was going to come to you in the city. Because I will say, yes, it's a double standard. You all get to make the biggest effort. You men get to spend the money. We're worth it. We're really worth it. I'm fine driving part of the way, if we're going to meet. Most of the time they offer to come all the way, which I'm really grateful for. I actually live near a train station. I've had 2 guys come on the train, which is just a riot. Because then there's restaurants. I don't have to even pick them up. We can still meet at a restaurant right by there. I know. I feel like I am so lucky where I live for a whole bunch of reasons, including dating. But find out how you work it out where you live, that it makes it accommodating for people that could come to you from a remote area, because that's such an important perspective. Thanks for bringing that up, Barry.
Well, it's realizing, I mean, for me, it's like I grew up in London, but I live on the outskirts. So for me, most of my social life was spent going into town, which was an hour on the train, and frankly, in rush hour, it was 2 hours on by car. So definitely not easy to get around. London's a big place. But the thing is also London is a very big place. So I know we're talking about living in a remote area, but I remember as a late teenager, early 20s, my social life was quite a journey to get to. There were a few locals. I mean, at a certain point in time, I was definitely spending time at local pubs where I could walk home like a mile and a half away from where I lived. That was great. But a lot of times also would be things where I'd have to travel to go there anyway. So remote area conversation about having to go a certain distance. Well, you could be living in a big city and still go to a quiet distance as well. So a lot of this stuff, I guess, translates or applies to other areas of dating as well, and other positions, other locations for dating as well. And the thing I want to keep saying is, and again, underscore this again and again, is do the work first with yourself, so you come from a much more healthy whole place when you meet somebody, so you're not coming from desperation or need, because you might end up, unfortunately, in a less than ideal situation.
Because safety is the most important foundation for dating successfully. To think about your own safety, your own well-being, figure out what makes you comfortable, tell the other person. I tell women it's the easiest beginning vetting process for a man to say, I'd rather meet you at a restaurant. I'd rather, you drive closer to me and I'll pick the place, and I'd rather meet in the middle of the day, and I want to meet in a public place. And a good guy, guaranteed, will say, okay. And and they might have a question. I'm okay with questions. And if they say, okay, then I will meet them. If they argue and say, I'm being sensitive, this is something to watch out for. And, why do you not trust me? And so my answer to that is always, I assume you're a good guy. I just won't know that until I meet you in person. And this is the way that makes me feel comfortable to meet you in person. And most of them say, okay. And every once in a while they'll argue. And I'm like, no, thank you. Because if you're going to argue about this it is a pretty little thing in the scheme of a whole relationship.
Right.
You're going to argue about everything that's important to me. And I won't feel safe enough to now give you the things that you need and want. So it's a great vetting process for women, especially.
Yeah. So I guess in one way you could say this whole thing about living in a remote area can be a very useful thing to have sometimes.
There's got to be some benefits to everything, right, Barry?
So upside, absolutely, yeah.
So if you live in a remote area or you meet people that live in remote areas, we hope that this has been really helpful and informative, because it's come up so much that we just needed to talk about this with people and give you some thoughts and see if we've given you some good direction. And if you still have questions or concerns, which I could imagine you do, Barry and I would be so happy to talk to you.
Yes, we would.
So the way to reach me is through my website. It's www.theperfectcatch.com. You scroll down to the middle and there's a what's holding you back from Love questionnaire. You click on that. There's 10 brief questions that talk about where are you and where would you like to be. And then you have access to my online calendar to schedule your complimentary conversation. You can also join my email list. You'll get a repeat of all of our podcasts each week and some exciting things that are coming up very soon that I'll be announcing. And then you can also scroll to the bottom of my webpage and find all my social media links that you can click on: Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and Pinterest and Instagram and Twitter or X. And you can also send me a personal private email to Christine@theperfectcatch.com and tell people how to reach you in all your myriad of ways, Barry.
Well, similar to Christine, I have a website and also have other places to reach me too. So you go to my website, which is my name, which is barryselby.com. And on that homepage of the website, there are three things I want to point out to you. It looks really nice now. It's been done properly, and it finally got released late last year. But near the top of the screen is an invitation to have a conversation with me. So first and foremost, get on my calendar and have a conversation with me. So if you go on that button, you click on the Let's Chat, it takes you to my calendar and also a form you fill out, same as Christine, that gives you some questions to ponder, some things to answer, and then we can have a conversation about where you are, where you want to go, and if we want to work together. In the bottom of the screen is a opt-in box. That's what we're looking for. Opt-in box to join my email list. So you can just go straight there if you want to get on my email list and get notified about things that are going on, because as like Christine, I've got lots of new things coming up. In fact, I'm in the middle of creating a couple of new courses that are going to be launching very soon. So you want to be first in line to know more about those. You want to be on my email list about that. So definitely do that. And then in the middle of the screen is a link to my quiz, which I've had out for a while now. In fact, I've got a second quiz, which I'll tell about afterwards. But the first quiz, which is a relationship readiness assessment, is in the middle of the screen. You click on that quiz there, and the button to go there, or you can go to barryselby.com/quiz. And then you can take the quiz, which gives you really feedback on where you are regarding relationships and dating and what you're looking for. And also if you feel what's in the way. Yes, it's going to be a self-reflective process that might make you feel not so happy, but it will be an honest look at yourself in the mirror using the questions that are provided in the quiz. And there'll be an invitation to have a conversation with me after that. The second quiz that I've just put up, it's not even public yet, but I'm telling you about it now because I've shared it with a few people, is a self-relationship quiz. And that one you can't get to on my website, but if you go to barryselby.com/self-quiz, different from the other one. So again, barryselby.com/self-quiz. That is a self-relationship assessment. That's 7 areas, because the other quiz has 4. This one has 7 different perspectives. Well, thank you. I think I'll update it right there. Self-quiz. It can all be lowercase anyway if you want to, but either way, upper or lowercase is fine. But again, it's 7 areas of self-relationship that I think are primary needs and areas you need to work on to become a better partner. And in fact, I'm launching, hopefully in a month, we'll see, a new course, an online course based on one of those 7 principles. And I think I might be doing one for every single one of the 7. So I'm going to be busy this year if I do that. Not promising, but thinking. But again, recommend you take the quiz, because you'll give you a look in the mirror to see where the relationship with yourself is right now and where you want to be. And again, invitation at the end of that to have a conversation with me. And in that quiz, the self-quiz, there's also a downloadable PDF with some guidance and tips, and you'll get a free report you can use to help you have a better relationship with yourself. So do that. Back to the other stuff. Social media. That was a long way to go. Sorry, excuse me. But if you go to find me on social media, it's my name, Barry Selby. So on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube especially, Threads. No, excuse me, not Threads. Blue Sky, that's the other one. And X, you can find me at Barry Selby. And then it's the real Barry Selby on Instagram and on Threads. And you can drop me an email at barry@barryselby.com. I think that's everything.
Your book and your review.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I forgot that. You reminded me. Thank you. My best-selling book's been out for quite a while, and I did actually have AI create an audio review of my book. So there's a what sound like real people, but it's fun. If you go to my book page, which is barryselby.com/book, or you go to the book link in my homepage, at the top of the screen is a 12-minute conversation between 2 AI voices discussing my book accurately. And I'm very impressed with this. Why I put it on my site, and it says underneath it was generated by AI. But if you want to check out my book without buying it yet, check out the review. It's fun. Thank you.
It's very exciting. The bots are out there making help with us.
They are.
So Barry and I actually are here live, not robots, every week. at 1 o'clock Pacific, at 4 o'clock Eastern, and all the times in between. And then if you'd like to watch the replay, you can watch us on Apple TV and Roku. And if you can't watch us, you can take us with you, right, Barry?
Indeed, you can just do us on audio. We have now had our videos uploaded to the audio platform. So podcasting, in fact, is the term. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, you can listen to us wherever you go. And because it's a podcast, you listen to it with the phone is in your pocket or somewhere else. You don't have to sit and watch it. You can do it when you're running around, driving, shopping, working out, whatever you're doing. So definitely you can take us with you wherever you go, because frankly, you might want our advice in your ear before you can go on dates.
Lots of people are telling me that they're listening to it all the time and quoting us to other people, which is kind of exciting here. I like it. So we will be back next week with another scintillating subject, with a new thing to talk about your dating and relationships. We hope that you'll tune in.
Look forward to seeing you then. You take care of yourselves and take care of us to heart. It'll help you.
Bye for now.
Next week.